In the heart of the Arizona desert, a blood-curdling legend was born, a monstrous red beast towering over the sands, its rider a faceless corpse bound to its back for eternity. No eyes, no soul, just a twisted, grinning skull. For 10 years it haunted the land, until one man dared to face it. But what he found was more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. The beginning, a night of terror at Eagle Creek Ranch. It was the spring of 1883, and Sarah was busy cleaning her small farmhouse in the isolated Eagle Creek settlement in Arizona. Outside, her sister Elizabeth had gone to fetch water from the well while their husbands tended to the sheep. Life in the Wild West was harsh and dangerous. Families stuck together for protection against the many threats lurking in the desert. Sarah and Elizabeth were responsible for the household and the children, while the men worked the land. The dog's ominous warning. As Sarah wiped dust from an old wooden table, she suddenly heard a terrifying sound. Her family's dogs tied outside, barking furiously. Their deep, frantic growls sent a chill down her spine. These were obedient dogs, never known to bark unless something was terribly wrong. She felt a wave of unease. Telling the children to stay inside, she stepped onto the porch, her heart pounding. She scanned the area, but at first, she saw nothing unusual, until her eyes reached the top of a nearby sand dune. The horrifying sight. From the crest of the hill, a monstrous creature emerged, a massive beast covered in thick, dark red fur. It had 4 powerful legs and a towering presence, unlike anything she had ever seen. But what truly sent ice through her veins was what sat upon its back. A man, or rather, something that looked like a man. Its face was grotesque, its eyes sunken deep into hollow sockets. A twisted grin stretched across its decayed lips, and as Sarah focused on it, she realized something horrifying. It had no eyes at all. She gasped, unable to move, as the creature and its nightmarish rider slowly descended the dune, heading straight for the house. Desperate, escape into the house. A surge of pure terror overtook her. Without hesitation, she turned and ran inside, slamming the door shut behind her. With shaking hands, she pushed a heavy wooden table against it, her breathing ragged. She gathered her 4 children, pulling them close as she whispered hurried prayers. Then a scream, a blood-curdling, human scream. It came from outside, from the well, from Elizabeth. Sarah's stomach dropped. Her sister was still out there. She wanted to rush to her, but fear paralyzed her. Instead, she stayed, trembling, protecting her children, hoping, praying that Elizabeth would somehow escape the terror outside. The endless night of fear hours passed. The house remained silent, the air thick with dread. Then heavy footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving across the porch. The door handle twisted, then bang! A forceful hit rattled the wooden door. Something was trying to get in. Sarah's heart nearly stopped. She clutched her children as they sobbed in fear. Was this the end? Had the devil himself come to take them away? Then voices. Familiar voices. With trembling hands, Sarah slowly unbolted the door. As it creaked open, she saw her family standing there, carrying Elizabeth's bloodied, injured body. She was alive, but barely. The unexplained horror. The town doctor arrived soon after, examining Elizabeth's wounds. What he found chilled him to the core. She had been trampled, not by a horse, but by something much, much larger. Massive hoofprints surrounded the area, too big for any known animal, the official cause of death in the sheriff's report. Unknown. But the legend was already spreading. The red ghost had arrived. Sightings of the red ghost stories began circulating. Travelers and cowboys reported seeing the monstrous red beast galloping through the desert at unnatural speeds. It attacked camps at night, trampling tents before vanishing into the shadows. A brave cowboy once lassoed it, only to be dragged across the desert floor until he was forced to let go. But no one had ever been able to stop it, until 10 years later. The final hunt one fateful morning, a farmer working his land in eastern Arizona saw the red ghost standing in his field. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed his rifle, aimed, and fired. Bang! The beast collapsed. Breathing heavily, the farmer cautiously approached the fallen monster. And that's when he saw it. The bone-chilling truth. The red ghost wasn't a supernatural beast after all. It was a camel, a massive, wild, red-furred camel. But what sent shivers down the farmer's spine was what remained on its back. Tightly strapped to the camel's body was a decayed human corpse, a skeleton still bound by leather straps, its bony hands gripping the reins. The flesh had rotted away long ago, leaving only a grinning skull, its empty sockets staring into eternity. The red ghost wasn't a demon, it was a ghost of the past. The real story behind the legend. Historians later discovered that in the mid-1800s, the US military experimented with using camels to transport supplies across the arid Southwest. One of these camels must have escaped, with its rider still tied to its back. Whether the man died in an accident or under mysterious circumstances, one thing was certain: he never came down. For 10 long years, the camel roamed the desert, carrying the corpse on its back. And every time someone saw it, the legend of the red ghost grew, from devil to legend. Even today, the tale of the red ghost remains one of the most chilling mysteries in Arizona's history. A statue now stands in its honor, forever immortalizing the horror that once haunted the desert. But one question remains unanswered. Who was the man tied to the camel? And more importantly, why was he tied there in the first place? Perhaps we will never know. Death! In a forgotten village in Eastern Europe, hidden deep within the Black Forest, stood a house where no one ever left the same. Inside lived a mother and her twin daughters. One was real. The other was something else. At night, whispers echoed through the halls, mirrors shattered without reason. And in the dark, one of them would wake up and not be herself anymore, until one night the truth was revealed. And by then, it was already too late. The isolated house in Romania. In a remote village in Romania, surrounded by the haunted, mist-covered Black Forest, stood an ancient home, more than 200 years old. It had belonged to Liana's family for generations, but the villagers feared it. They feared her twin daughters, Elena and Katya, because every family that lived in that house before was never the same when they left, and some never left at all. The first signs all were warning from the dead. It began after their father's mysterious death. He had been driving near Hoia Baciu Forest, one of Romania's most haunted places, when something unseen struck his car. The vehicle flipped when they found his body. His face was covered in deep, claw-like scratches, as if someone had been holding him from the inside. But the car was completely sealed. After his death, the twins changed. Elena became silent, always staring into mirrors, as if seeing something no one else could. Katya began speaking in her sleep, whispering in a language no one understood. Until one night, Liana woke up to the sound of muffled crying. She rushed to their bedroom. Katya was fast asleep. But Elena, she was awake, sitting motionless in the corner, murmuring in a voice that wasn't hers. Liana touched her shoulder. Slowly, Elena turned to face her. Her eyes were completely black. "I am Elena, but I'm also not..." Then she smiled, a cold, empty, unnatural smile. And without another word, She lay down and went back to sleep, as if nothing had happened. The ancient curse. A forgotten nightmare. Terrified, Liana sought answers. An old woman in the village knew the truth. 200 years ago, another family lived in that house. They too had twin daughters, but one of them died as an infant. The grieving mother turned to a witch in the forest, begging to bring her child back. But what returned was not her child. At night, the girl would laugh alone, speak in two voices, until one day the mother woke up and the twins had switched places. She tried to find out which one was real, but both of them whispered in the same voice, "I am real. She is the shadow." And then the family vanished. No one ever found them. No one ever knew which twin had survived. And that's when Liana understood the horrifying truth. One of her daughters was not human. The test and the mirror that knew the truth. Desperate, Liana devised a test. She gave them an antique mirror and told them to look into it together. Katya's reflection appeared normal. But Elena, there was nothing. The moment Elena realized, the mirrors shattered. Glass exploded in every direction. Katya screamed, tears streaming down her face. "She's not my sister. She took her place. She's the other one." Elena turned calmly to her mother, and in a voice as cold as the grave, she whispered, "I am real. She is the shadow." The final moment before it was too late. Liana grabbed Katya, rushing to the door. But when she tried to open it, it wouldn't budge. The door was gone. Only a wall remained. Behind them, Elena stepped forward, a slow, measured pace. The lights flickered, then darkness. The air turned ice cold, and in the pitch-black void, a voice whispered into Liana's ear, "I am always with you, Mama." Then the lights returned. Elena was gone. The end, or just the beginning? But here's the real question. Who disappeared? Was it the real Elena? Or did the shadow win? Because to this day, when Liana looks into a mirror, she still sees her, smiling, watching, waiting. The end? Or is it death?